How's it going, everyone? Major Rushmore here, and in this video I'm going to talk about another major story, something that happened in my life. It's the time I ran away from home. Before I get into the video, I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. It's now the first day of the year, the 1st of January, and I am going to make this year a year to remember. For me personally, not so much on my YouTube channel, because you know I'm all about those sporadic uploads. I'm not really bothered in it, but from time to time I do upload a video, and I hope they're going to be worthwhile, such as this one. But mainly, Happy New Year, and I hope it's a good one for you guys. The gameplay in the background, I've given up completely on Advanced Warfare. I'm now a born-again Battlefield 4 player. I downloaded the latest DLC a couple of weeks ago called, what the fuck is the DLC called? Oh my god, I can't think of it. I can't think of the name of the DLC. They're all basically snow maps. I can't think of the name of the fucking DLC. I'm going to kick myself at the end of this video. But of the 4 maps in the DLC, excuse me, this is my favourite map, the gameplay in the background. It's called Operation Whiteout. It's a large map where you play Conquest large, lots of vehicles, lots of infantry. It's a 64 player map. It's fucking brilliant. I absolutely love it. Favourite map in the entire game. So hope you enjoy the gameplay. Now, the story itself. So, back in 1995 it was a weekday night. I was after being in school that day, and I was 15 years of age, and I was sitting in my sitting room at home with my my sister. My father was in work, and my mother was in the kitchen or whatever, and I was sitting down watching telly. And when I was a teenager, I was an extremely grumpy, angry little kid. If anything happened, like if someone came into the sitting room and left the door open, so they were letting the heat out, so I'd shout at them, say, close that fucking door and don't let the fucking heat out and all this, like, you know what I mean? Or if someone was standing in front of the telly when I was trying to watch it, I'd get real narky and annoyed over that, you know? And my sister was the very same. She was a couple of years younger than me, and she was narky as well, and we'd always be fighting and bickering, as we called it. But this particular night, it all came to a head where I just cracked up. I couldn't take it anymore. It boiled over, and she done something, screaming and shouting at me or whatever it was, and I just grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and I threw her on the ground really fucking hard, like, you know what I mean? She started roaring. She was, I'm going to tell Daddy on you. I'm going to tell Daddy. So I was really afraid of me daddy and what he'd do, because I actually got physical with a girl, my sister, like, you know what I mean, my family member. So I wasn't going to fucking... And my mother was there screaming and yelling at me as well, like, you know. And I was just... didn't want to face the wrath of my father when he came home, so I said, fuck this. So I threw on a tracksuit top and I ran out my back door, and I hopped over my back wall and ran all the way up to Vinegar Hill, which is this... big hill that's out at the back of my home. If you go back through my channel about 5 videos ago, I actually shot a video from the top of Vinegar Hill, an in real life video where it looks down on the town of Enniscorthy, my hometown. And so I ran all the way up there. It was 8 o'clock at night at this time, and it was pitch dark and it was freezing. So I ran up top of Vinegar Hill and I was shivering my arse off, crying my eyes out. 15 years of age, but I was still crying like a bad girl, because I was fucking, you know, I was just so ashamed and so afraid and frightened. And Vinegar Hill at night time is an extremely scary place, like, you know, it's pitch black, freezing cold, and it's kind of it's a spooky kind of the wind was howling, like, and it's just a really fucking spooky place at night time. But so that was it. I was up there for about 2 hours, I'd say it was. And I was up there, I could look down on the whole town, and I could see that the soccer team that I played for, they were training hard down on the soccer field, and under floodlights, that is. And I was just trying to gather my thoughts and think about what I was going to do. Was I going to go back to my house, or was I not? So I said, no, I'm not. I was still fuming over the whole thing as well, and crying and loads of emotions. So I said I would go down to a place called the Mission House. This is where the community centre was, in the Shannon area of Enniscorthy, where I grew up. And I said I'd go down there and see could I get into some building, or break into a building to try and get warm and get some shelter for the night or whatever, until I gathered my thoughts even further. So I went down to the Mission House, hopped over a few walls, and I was so cold that I jumped up onto the top of a shed, or the top of a building. It was only 1 story high or whatever. and there was a flat roof, so I jumped up on top of that, and that was where they housed their boiler, which heated their radiators, and there was a chimney on top of it. So I got up on the roof, and I held my hands over the chimney, which is about the height of it was about the same height as me. So I held my hands over the chimney in the smoke to warm them up, because it was all the heat coming from the radiator boiler. And there was a huge floodlight over where the priests lived. The priests have a mansion down there as well. That's why it was called a mission house. I was on the roof of the community centre, which was adjacent to the mission house where the priests live. And in the mission house where the priests lived, there was a huge floodlight outside of it, and it was pointing in the direction of where I was, on the roof of the community centre boiler house. And little did I know, but the light was casting a huge shadow up on the building after me, behind me, if you know what I mean. So my shadow was normally like whatever it was at the time, 5'7" or whatever it was, and but when it was projected onto the wall behind me, it was like 30 foot high, huge shadow, you know. And next minute, I was there, I was heating my hands for about 10 minutes, and all I heard was, "Are you okay there? Are you okay there?" And I looked down, and it was the fucking priest. He was after seeing me. He must have seen my shadow, and he saw me up on the roof, and he was down in the grass beside me talking to me, saying, "Are you okay there? What are you doing there?" and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, fuck. Now this priest turned out to be, he's actually the bishop of he's the bishop of Ferns now. He's in the or not the constituency, but the diocese where I live. He's actually the bishop now. He's a top dog when it comes to the clergy and all of that. So he was a priest back then, but he's now the bishop. So he's asked me what my name was, and he goes, "Oh, my name is John Doyle, you know." I give him a fake name. "What are you doing, John?" I says, "I'm looking for my dog. He ran away from home. I can't find him anywhere. I thought he would be down here." And he goes, "Why don't you jump down here, John? Why don't you jump down? We'll have a talk about it." So I said, okay, but stand back there about 10 feet or whatever so I can jump down. And so he said, okay. So he stood back about 10 feet, and I jumped down, and I fucking ran like Linford Christie. I fucking sprinted 100 miles an hour down the fucking road to escape from him, or going to let him catch me. So he didn't chase me. So I ran about 200 meters or whatever it was, and I hid in a ditch. And so I said I would wait to see would he follow me. He never followed me, so that was good. So I then said I'd go back up. I went outside the front of my house, up to I lived in an estate, so I went out to the front of my house, and I was about 50 meters from the front of my house across the road, looking at it, contemplating, would I go back in or would I not go in? And my house, it looked like there was no one doing anything. There was no one worried for me. There was no one looking for me or anything. Just all the lights were on. I presume my father was home at the time as well, and I was still across the road, still sulking, still crying, and still angry as well. And I was contemplating on going back in, but I didn't want to face the wrath of my father. So I said, fuck this. I said I'd go back down to the mission house. This was about an hour later. Now at this stage was must have been about 11 or 12 at night. And I said I'd go back down to the mission house because it was my best chance of finding shelter for the night. And I didn't want to contact anyone or talk to anyone or whatever. So I know my friends would have helped me out or whatever. But I said I'd go back down to the mission house. But when I got there, there was no sign of that priest. And I got an awful urge to make a shit, I was bursting to go for a shit. So I went into the grounds of the community centre and the mission house, and the convent where the nuns live. It's all one huge big complex. It's about 3 or 4 acres big. I'll actually put up a map on the screen here now, an overhead view, so you can see what I'm talking about. And I'll highlight a few areas on it. I'm gonna have to get out the Photoshop now to do this. But so there you go. So there's the mission house. There's the community centre, the roof of the boiler house where I was heating my hands. There's the wall where my shadow was. And in this area here is where I decided to go for a big huge shit. And I had no toilet paper, so I had to lean my back against the wall of the building. And I was kind of crouched down, and I think it was the biggest shit I ever had. I mean to say, it was fucking huge. Thinking back about it now, it was fucking massive. And the thing was, I had no toilet paper to wipe my arse at the end of it, so I was like, fuck, dirty scumbag. So then I was thinking about myself, where am I going to find shelter? So I said I would go back. I'd go around the grounds of this big, huge complex and see could I find somewhere, a door open or somewhere that I could go into. So I bring up the map again, and so I went, here's where I had the shit. But then I said I'd walk down along by the edge of this convent and try a few doors and see where they open. And there was one door in particular that I said I'd try because it looked pretty obvious that it might be open. So I went over and I tried it, and to my astonishment, the door was open. So I pulled the handle really quietly, and it was all the lights were off inside. And I opened the door and I stuck my head in to see what was in there. And it was a fucking bedroom, and making things worse, there was someone asleep in the fucking bed. A fucking nun out of the convent was asleep in the bed. Well, I fucking just closed the door and I ran 100 miles an hour again on the way back over into the kind of a little kind of forest. I'll just bring that up on the map again. There's that forest where in the mission house grounds, where you could hide and get lots of coverage if anyone was trying to find you. So that was it. And now in the mission, in this whole complex as well, there was a play school, and the play school was it's going back like 30 years or more. It's where I actually went to play school when I was a child. Bring up the map again. Here's the play school. So I remembered when I was in play school that there was they provided you with biscuits and orange or Coca-Cola or whatever it was. I know you could play with all the toys and all, but I was just wanting to get somewhere warm, somewhere in shelter. It was getting close to 1 o'clock in the morning at this stage now. So I said I would try and break in the door, because the door was all locked obviously, and it was only a prefab building, you know, and these a wooden door. I said I would have been able to break it in, I'd say. So I gave it a try. So I stood back. I could only go back so far, about 6 feet from the door to the wall, and I ran at the door, and I had to time it right. I had to run, I had to extend my hand and grab the handle and try and push the handle down and hit the door with my shoulder as I would make contact with it, you know, just so the handle wouldn't interfere with the impact. And it cracked. I could hear it cracking every time I was doing it. I could hear it crack, and I was trying to be as quiet as possible as well, because I didn't want to raise too much attention. And I wasn't sure if there was going to be an alarm on it as well, so I wanted to be careful. So I had about 10 attempts at it. Every attempt I kept getting louder and the door kept cracking more and more. But on about the 11th attempt or whatever, I made a huge big this is it now, I'm going to go shit or burst. And I made a huge big fucking run at it, and I broke the fucking door in, bursted it open, and it opened. Cracked off the frame or whatever, but I opened the door. So what I done was, there was no alarm, so I closed the door over, and I fucking ran back into that forest, and I hid for about half an hour to an hour. So as I wanted to, and I could still keep view of the door and the building, just to make sure that the police didn't arrive, or the Gardaí as we call them over here. I was that, you know, I didn't want to get caught by the guards. That was the biggest thing. I did not want to get caught whatsoever. So I wanted to make sure no nuns came, the priest didn't come, or the police or the Gardaí didn't come. So no one came after an hour, so I said, okay, there's no alarm on this building, obviously. So I went back into it. It must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 or whatever at this stage. And I went into the building, and it was pitch black. There's about 2 or 3 rooms in it, but it was pitch dark, and I couldn't see a fucking thing. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. It was that dark. So I had to there was no mobile phones at this stage, so I had to get some light so I could see what I was doing, you know. So I said I'd flash the light just to see could I get a glimpse of what was going on. And so I said I'd flash the light for about a second and then turn it off really quick, just to see could I spot anything, you know, anything like, was there a sofa there, was there a press where they kept the drinks and the biscuits and all of that. So I done this. I flicked the light about 4 or 5 different times, each time looking at a different side of the room, so I could get my bearings and see what was there. So the first time I flicked it, I saw that there was a little kind of a sofa, a little 2-seater sofa type of job where I could lie down, and that was grand. Turned the light off. The second time I turned the switch on, I looked and I saw that there was a plug-in heater, an electric heater, so that's fine. Turned the light off straight away. I could also see, on the third time when I flicked the light, I could see that there was curtains up on the window that weren't pulled or weren't closed. And on the fourth flick of the switch, I could see that there was a press. So I went over to the press, I turned the light off, I went over to the press and I opened it, and I could feel a bottle of drink, whatever it was. I didn't know what drink it was at the time, but I rooted around that press again. I let the door open and I turned the light on again, and I saw where they kept all the biscuits. So I fucking stole the drink and the biscuits. I fucking drank about a litre of Coca-Cola or whatever it was, and I had about 2 packets of biscuits, chocolate biscuits or whatever they were as well. And I sat down on I lay down on this little 2-seater sofa. I had the light turned off at this stage, by the way, and had the heater turned on. But the heater wasn't great. I wasn't getting enough heat out of it, and the lead wasn't close enough to me where the seat was. So I ripped the curtain off the window, and I wrapped myself up in the curtain because I was so cold. I had a little light tracksuit top on me at the time. So I was there shivering, trying to get as warm as possible, and trying to get some sleep and shelter. So I had a little alarm on my watch, a digital watch I had at the time. So I set my alarm for like 5:30 in the morning to make sure that I would get up before anyone came into the play school and I wouldn't get caught red-handed. So there was loads of fucking ways I could have got caught. Like if there had been an alarm or someone had heard the noise of the fucking of me cracking the door or whatever, breaking the door down. But I wonder can use this video on evidence against me, because we're probably to this day wondering who the fuck was that. But I'm hoping it's so long ago now it's all forgotten about, and it won't be a cold case that they have to reopen. Imagine that. Get put in jail for coming clean about something I done when I was a child. But anyway, diminished responsibility. I didn't know what I was doing. I was under duress, Your Honour. Be quite funny now if this was played back in court, if someone reported me and I got pulled into court. Oh fuck. But back then they probably didn't have DNA technology, but believe you me, they would have had all the fucking DNA evidence they wanted if they just had to put a dipstick in that big lump of shit that I went for, remember? Oh my god, it was the massivest, biggest fucking shit of all fucking time. So anyway, I got up at about 6:30 or whatever it was, and I just ran through that little forest, down the driveway, bring up the map again, down this driveway and up here, up Spring Valley Hill, and I came up to a little shop that was there on the Shannon Hill, where I had a couple of pounds in my pocket, and I bought 2 Snickers bars because I was so hungry, even though I had eaten biscuits and drinks or whatever. So 2 Snickers bars, and I went back up to Vinegar Hill so I could regather my thoughts and see what I was going to do. By the way, while all this was going on that morning, I was up on Vinegar Hill for about 3 hours. So it turned out that my father had contacted the school to see where any of my friends heard from me, any of my schoolmates, and they hadn't. So what the school decided to do was they would set some of my friends out of school and send them around town or around my local places that I would go to search for me, to see could they find me, you know. And so my friend was telling me all this later, obviously this was after the fact, I hadn't got a clue at the time, but it was the main, at my wedding he was the best man, and he gave his speech, and the main part of his speech was where he was talking to people about the time I ran away from home and when they had to search for me. And he said, "Go away, will you?" He said, they were laughing about it, said, there's no point in looking for him, sure, he's alright, he's grand, sure, he knows what to do or whatever. So they went down to the prom to play fucking soccer down in this field, you know, down in this handball alley to start playing soccer. They didn't even bother looking for me, the fucker, you know. So that's fucking, thanks for that, John, if you're watching this video, really appreciate that. At the lowest fucking part of my life when my friends down playing soccer and they're supposed to be looking for me, fucking hell. But anyway, everyone got a giggle out of that at the wedding, at the speech anyway, so I was embarrassed as hell. But anyway, I'm bringing it up again myself here. But I was up on Vinegar Hill anyway, and if you were downtown, or if you're in my house, you could look up at Vinegar Hill and you could make out the outline of people. Obviously it's during the daytime, it's about like a kilometre away from my house or whatever, but you could look up and you could see in the distance, you could see the outline of people on top of Vinegar Hill. And I was up on Vinegar Hill, just must have been 4 hours at this stage now, trying to think of what to do. And my father must have seen me, or someone must have reported seeing me going up towards Vinegar Hill, but he came up, driving up the roadway to Vinegar Hill, and I could see him getting out of the car in the car park, because I heard a car coming up, and I could see it was him, and he ran up, and he held out his arms and all that, and I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know whether to run or what, and I started roaring, crying, and he was crying, and said, "Simon, come here, please, come here, I love you," and all this, you know. And I went down and he hugged me and he said, I'd never hurt you, I'd never hit you and all this kind of stuff, and don't worry, I know what Claire's like, I know what your sister is like and all like that. You don't have to make us all so worried. We don't know where you are, and we're looking for you the whole night, and all of this kind of stuff. They were contacting me school and the Gardaí and everything. They thought I was going to run away and kill myself or do something stupid like that, So it was fucking crazy, you know what I mean? So we all made up and kissed and made up and reconfirmed our love, unconditional love for each other and our family and all that, and that was more or less the end of the story, believe it or not. So what do you guys think of that one? That was quite a long-winded one, quite a lot of a little adventure, but things you do when you're young. Thinking back at it, I'd never do it again. It was extremely foolish of me to do that, but it was an adventure. It was I hope it was a good story. The moral of the story, I don't know. Make sure that you love and respect your family, like, at all times. Like, you're only on this earth for a significantly small amount of time. Like, there's no time to fight with your family, let alone other people outside your family. But fighting with your family and treating with disrespect is not the way to go. And when you're a teenager, you need to lighten up and think about, like, I'm best of friends with my sister now. Like, she has her own business and all that, and she's successful and everything is going well, and I help her business out with my business, and we're all best of friends and all that, So, love your family. That's the moral of the story. But anyway, coming to the end of this video, still another so many minutes of gameplay left. What are your New Year's resolutions? This is the 1st of January, as I said, the first day of the new year. My wife asked me this morning, what's my New Year resolution going to be? Now, I'm overweight, I'm obese, So normally people would say, oh, I'm going to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'd like to lose weight, obviously, but it's not my first concern. My first concern is making money. Money is extremely important to me. The most important thing to me is my family, all right? Followed closely in a close second by money. Family and money, and then my weight and my health and well-being. So my objective this year is to become a millionaire a couple of times over. And I'm not being silly or foolish about that. I have actually a plan in mind to get me there. As I said before in a couple of videos previous, I've shares in a website that I work on called Golf Voyager. And I'm hoping, the plan is that's going to be my golden ticket. And that has received some seed capital recently, which gave it a 7-figure valuation. So that's to get money to get us over the line and get us out there to the first round of proper investment, where we're going to look for an 8-figure valuation. Excuse me, an 8-figure valuation. And from there, we're hoping to get bought out by a huge conglomerate. Well, I can't give too much away, but it's all pie in the sky stuff. But there is a plan in place, and we're after meeting a couple of the milestones in that plan so far. We've another couple to reach, and once my shares get to a certain valuation, once the company gets to a certain valuation, my shares will be worth X amount of money. And at that stage, I have a number in mind as to when I will actually cash out my shares. I won't leave the company. I will stay on as the executive developer or whatever, cracking the whip over a team of developers or directing the infrastructure and the architecture of the system. But I won't be developing as much, but I will be taking a huge fucking salary, probably 10 times what I'm on at the moment. And that's a big chunk of change, believe you me. But I would take a big lump sum payment for my shares, probably keep 1% of my shares in the company, and that's how I'm going to be a millionaire this year. I'm fucking convinced of it, and it's all I want to do. So, yeah. Will it work? Will it not work? I don't know, but I'm going to give it my fucking damnedest best effort and see how it works. See what happens with it. That's it. Yeah. So, what are you guys' resolutions? Are you going to give up eating junk food? Are you going to be more helpful around the house? What are you going to do? Please let me know in the comment section below, and I shall talk to you in my next video, whenever that may be. So, all the best. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.